Hey, good morning, folks. It is Tuesday, April whatever, sometime early in the morning. I am here at Hartman Reserve Nature Preserve in Cedar Falls, and I'm going to awkwardly bring you a few videos trying to highlight a few of the learning targets that we have with ecology over the next few weeks. So here I am down in the bottomlands, and my goal today is to highlight a few of the differences between the lowlands and the uplands. So here I am, you can see very flat, very dense tree covered. This is in the floodplain of the Cedar River, which is somewhere down in that direction. And as we look around, you can see we have a lovely green carpet coming up of all of our spring ephemerals, and we're just going to walk around a little bit and just see what we can see between this very flat bottom lowland and then as we move more towards the uplands, which are way through those trees back there. And crap, my camera battery is going to die. Fresh battery, I'm back. So down along lowlands, you can see lots of these little white flowers. These are called, focus. These are called false ruin anemone. A little closed up yet as it's still pretty early in the morning. And one of the crazier flowers, if I can find any that are opened up, this is called wild ginger. You can see these tiny little red flowers, and they tend to lay right here along the ground. I'm not really sure what's pollinated by them. I'll have to kind of look that up. Looks like something beetle pollinated or something. These deep red little flowers, and they just lay right along the ground. They got these big heart-shaped leaves of this wild ginger. So as we walk along the trail here, one thing to notice down in the lowland is as we look around on the ground cover looks pretty similar. It's a nice carpet of these rue anemone, these white flowers, and then we see lots of white ginger, lots of other things like that Virginia waterleaf right there that has these white spots growing on them. And the goal today is to focus on learning targets 2.1 and 2.2 that both deal with diversity and different landscapes. So here we have this, again, this lowland landscape, very flat. It's a floodplain forest. Lots of the same trees. We can see as we look around the trees, they're all the same size, indicating the same age class of a lot of the trees. And really not a lot of diversity along the ground cover. Lots of the same few plants all along the way. A few little toothworts along there. There's some cutleaf toothwort. Flower still closed up in the kind of dim morning. But there's just not a lot. It's a lot of the same thing. Just flat, green, similar sized trees. This is the lowland. Hope you guys like lots of jump cuts. I'm not much of a video editor. So, nice little patch of buttercups of some sort. These lovely yellow flowers. So, buttercups still closed up in the early morning. These big dissected out leaves. And then of course, a yellow cup-like flower once it opens up. And then there's more, lots more of our wild ginger. All these big heart-shaped leaves, pretty velvety and soft. And again, as we dig down, we can find some of those crazy little red ginger flowers. So we think about diversity, what's pollinating that deep red flower versus what's coming along visiting all of these yellow buttercup flowers. Different functions in the environment. What is their function? Who's working with them? As we look at different landscapes. Here's just a quick little highlight showing the difference between the lowlands and the uplands. So I'm right here on the edge of the hill. And as we look down here at the bottom, lots of this Virginia waterleaf. Lots of just sort of that same carpet, same kind of plant all over the place. And as we move right over onto the hill, so now I'm looking straight at the side of the hill. See lots of sedges growing. There's some bloodroot leaves that are still left. Those are absent down in the bottomlands. There's some Dutchman's britches. Those guys are pretty much done blooming, but that crazy looking leaf right there. Some bellwort. Lots of little maple seedlings. And just a very different kind of landscape. Lots of trout lily poking its way up, but a lot more diversity. Tons of different plants. Not to mention it's steep. There's a nice big patch of bloodroot. It's done blooming, unfortunately. It's a beautiful white little flower. And we can see there's more things like our gingers up along the side here. Looks like there's a little more Dutchman's britches with that crazy dissected out leaf. But just lots more species of plants. Tons more stuff. Trees are different. Big old oak tree there. Several more big old oak trees that are kind of absent down in the lowlands in the floodplain. Okay. This is a crazy little flower called Dutchman's britches. It gets its name because, well, it looks like little pants. And these guys are an amazing little flower. They are almost strictly pollinated by bumblebees. It's only the bumblebees that can rip into these little spurs, sort of the pant legs. Focus, focus. Only bumblebees can rip into the spurs of these little guys and then there's a little bit of nectar at the tip of each of these pant legs. And no other insect has enough strength to just rip in there and actually get the nectar. Some beetles and stuff will chew into the tip of that and steal the nectar without actually pollinating it. But it's the bees will rip into that front side there. You can see I poked it open and there is the flower structures inside. There's some bird watcher lady behind me. She's probably wondering what's this weirdo doing just talking to the trees. If you guys are looking for some food, these guys right here are called wild leeks or ramps. You can look down at the base, and well, hard to see on the video here, but they turn kind of red down towards the base of the plant. And these guys are super sought after for wild edibles. They're related to onions and garlic, and they have, well, a related flavor too. I picked a whole bunch of these in another place about a week ago, and I now have them fermenting, turning into some wild leek sauerkraut. Always be mindful as you harvest that stuff though. Take one leaf of the two of the plant. You don't want to kill these plants. They're really slow growing and take a long time to repopulate. Oh, trilliums! More trilliums! More trilliums! Even more trilliums! Holy cow, they're everywhere! Bumblebee and a gooseberry. As you think about learning targets 2.1 and 2.2, differences between environments, what's happening, what lives there. Think about what happens to that environment. What do you suppose happens down here in this very flat lowland, not too far off the river? Compared to as we move up the hill and we go into the uplands, clear up away from the river, what happens? What doesn't happen? What could be the differences between these two environments? Not just things like flooding, but the amount of temperature, how much moisture is in the soil, the composition of the soil. All of that's going to be reflected in what kind of organisms call this place home. So wherever you find yourself at, even in your backyard, what are different places that you can find from one spot to the next in your yard, or whatever place that you happen to be at? Look for those differences from one place to another, and then think about what those differences could mean. The different plants, the different animals, the different soils, temperatures, water, all of that's going to make a difference in what you can find and what's going to live there. May apples. Lots of May apples. Not blooming yet. But there is a flower bud. There's the flower bud. It'll be blooming here in another couple weeks. So here's a nice little example of a very small little habitat that's very different than everything else. So here a tree fell quite a few years ago, and then in this big old massive root ball, the plants and things that are calling this place life, because it's very different. There are all these little weedy species and this moss and still lots of bare soil. It's a very different little environment than the surrounding forest. So, different environment, different habitat, different life that's found there. Learning targets 2.1, 2.2.